Okay, let's just dive right in, because today we are looking at one of the most explosive musical controversies of the entire decade. You know it, you've heard it, Miley Cyrus's smash hit, Flowers. It absolutely dominated the charts, right? But it also kicked off this massive debate. So, in this explainer, we're gonna play musical detectives. We're throwing out the gossip, and we're looking strictly at the data, the sheet music, and the production to do a full-blown musical autopsy on Flowers and the song it supposedly ripped off, Bruno Mars's When I Was Your Man. So did Miley actually steal it? I mean, literally the second Flowers dropped, social media was just flooded with these viral mashups, seamlessly blending Miley's vocals right over Bruno's piano. And man, people noticed those thematic connections instantly. It was the talk of the internet, and it ultimately triggered a massive copyright lawsuit. The internet's court of public opinion declared it a total ripoff from day one. But as we're gonna see, what sounds similar to our casual ears can actually be totally different under the hood.
And look, this isn't just a bunch of TikTok drama anymore. There is some incredibly serious money on the line here. A company called Tempo Music Investments actually filed a lawsuit asking for maximum statutory damages. We are talking $150,000 for every single infringement. But here's a really crucial detail you've got to know. Bruno Mars himself, he's not actually named as a plaintiff in this lawsuit at all. Tempo Music simply owns a piece of the copyright for When I Was Your Man, and they're the ones dragging Miley into court.
And they are not holding back. Tempo Music's complaint outright alleges that Flowers intentionally copied, quote, numerous melodic, harmonic, and lyrical elements. And they claim the song basically wouldn't exist without When I Was Your Man. They're essentially arguing this goes way past mere inspiration, crossing right over that legal line into unauthorized reproduction. But to see if that actually holds any water, we've got to break down exactly what they mean by melodic, harmonic, and lyrical elements.
Which brings us to part one, the lyrical illusion, and why everyone thought it was a copy.
So, here's the thing. When we hear familiar words or themes, our brains kind of trick us into thinking the music itself is identical. It's a lyrical illusion. Just look at this side by side. On the left, you've got Bruno Mars lamenting his past mistakes. He says, "I should have bought you flowers and held your hand." And then on the right, Miley perfectly flips those exact regrets into this huge anthem of self-reliance. She responds, "I can buy myself flowers. I can hold my own hand." She's totally subverting his original message. It is a brilliant lyrical inversion. But lyrics alone don't dictate the actual musical architecture of a song.
All right, let's move on to part two, the musical autopsy, focusing on tempo, rhythm, and genre.
Because sharing a mood or a lyrical theme absolutely does not mean sharing a musical blueprint. If we want to know if Flowers was actually stolen, we need to look at the raw, hard data. And when you look at these two side by side, the whole idea that they are musical twins kind of just falls apart. Look at this. Bruno Mars wrote a very traditional, stripped-back, emotional piano ballad creeping along at a super slow 73 beats per minute. Miley Cyrus, though, she delivered a track from an entirely different sonic universe. Miley's track pushes forward at an incredibly upbeat 118 beats per minute. It's built on this driving, four-on-the-floor kick drum, soaring strings, and this seriously funky electric bass line. I mean, it's undeniably a disco funk track, right? The actual physical sensation of listening to Flowers completely clashes with Bruno's acoustic ballad structure. You literally cannot dance to When I Was Your Man the way you groove to Flowers. And producers will love this part. Experts have pointed out that Flowers uses this amazing production trick called the slingshot effect. Normally, in a huge pop song, the first beat of the chorus hits super hard with a massive drum kick. But in Flowers, they leave that first downbeat completely silent. It creates this sudden, tense vacuum, literally like pulling back a slingshot, and then boom, it unleashes this burst of funky bass right on beat 2. That strutting, propulsive energy, you won't find anything even close to that in Bruno's ballad.
Okay, part three, harmonic DNA.
Let's compare the chords and melodies. So if the rhythm and the genre are wildly different, maybe the lawsuit is all about the exact chords being played. Now, to be perfectly fair, there are shared elements here. Both songs are in the key of C, and both kick off their chord progressions with an A minor chord. Plus, yeah, they share a very similar emotional vibe about reflecting on a past relationship. But, as music theorists are very quick to point out, there are literally tens of thousands of sad songs that start with an A minor chord in the key of C. That's just a fundamental building block of music, right? It definitely doesn't prove somebody stole a blueprint. Because the second you move past that very first A minor chord, their harmonic DNA goes in completely different directions. Flowers relies on a really repetitive 4-chord loop, A minor, D minor, G, and C. It's an absolute staple in modern dance and pop.
But look at Bruno's progression on the left. It is vastly more complex. It weaves through all these variations and passing chords that you typically find in a traditional piano ballad. Structurally speaking, they just don't match.
And the melodies are a totally different story too. Miley's vocal melody is actually quite simple, very steady, staying in this pretty narrow range. But to fill the negative space, the song uses what producers call a nano hook. It's this repetitive, mellow, 1970s-style oboe synth that acts as a call and response to her vocals. It perfectly mirrors her confident strut. Bruno's melody, on the other hand, is highly rhythmic, super complex, and packed with these sweeping vocal runs designed to show off his huge range.
Finally, part 4, the verdict, interpolation versus an answer song.
Alright, so what do we have? We've got two songs with heavily linked lyrics, but completely different tempos, genres, chords, and melodies. To really wrap our heads around this lawsuit, we have to understand two totally different concepts in the music industry. First up is an interpolation. This is when an artist physically takes an actual piece of a melody or instrumental from an older song and re-records it for their own track. But because Miley didn't actually use Bruno's melody or his instrumental structure at all, music theorists and legal experts are pretty unanimous: Flowers is definitely not an interpolation.
What it actually is an answer song. It sits squarely in this long, rich historical tradition of artists writing creative responses to previous tracks. They adopt a theme, but they subvert the message. It's exactly like Lynyrd Skynyrd writing Sweet Home Alabama as a direct answer to Neil Young's Southern Man, or Monica and Brandy putting out The Boy Is Mine as an answer to The Girl Is Mine by Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney. And that brings us right back to the legal reality of this whole mess. Joseph Fishman, an expert in music law at Vanderbilt Law School, really hit the nail on the head here. He notes that sharing words and thematic ideas is simply not copyright infringement. I mean, you can't copyright the basic idea of buying someone flowers. That means Tempo Music's lawsuit completely hinges on proving substantial musical similarities. And as we've seen throughout our autopsy today, once you look past the clever lyrics, those musical similarities are incredibly hard to find.
So as this legal drama continues playing out in court, it really forces us to ask some big questions about how music is made today. If a song brilliantly responds to the lyrics of an older hit but features entirely original music, is that theft? Or is it just phenomenal songwriting? It leaves us wondering exactly where we should draw the boundary between a clever thematic response and a structural ripoff. Definitely keep an ear out the next time you hear a familiar theme on the radio, because you know what? It might just be an answer song waiting to be discovered.